Hello and welcome. This is week 10. Can you believe that it's week 10 and actually the last week of the spring Zoom flower classes? So these have been a mashup between flower arranging and crafting related things. So because we're still in lockdown, it hasn't been so easy to get out and buy flowers as it was. I can't even say this time last year because we were in lockdown this time last year. So I think also this week marks the 1 year anniversary of being on Zoom with you all. So I think we all deserve a round of applause for turning up each week. And I'm getting some waves. Thank you very much. And a round of applause as well. Thank you. So I am recording this video, so it does seem rather rude of me to have you all on mute, but the reason for that is that if you speak, it means the camera will go to you, and or at least if not the camera, your voice will come out in the recording at the end. So I will record this bit. You know the form of the drill by now. And when I've finished recording, I'll take you all off mute. You can ask your questions live. And if you're able to stay and make and create with me, I can keep you company while you chat and ask me questions about the materials that you've got. So over my shoulder, you can see what we made last week. I won't be lifting it to the table because I've had to put so much water into my vase to catch the stem ends of the flowers which I had raised up. So I measured my whole arrangement, and my tallest flower, tulip, was 63 centimetres off the surface compared to the natural length of the tulip, which was 35 centimetres. I ought to measure it again, really, because as you know, that the tulips continue to grow in the vase and also move towards the light. So mine have been okay. They haven't, I'm just making sure everyone's on mute. You are all on mute, that's fantastic. So mine don't seem to have swiveled towards the light very much, but I do have them into quite a dark corner in my front room, so they have more or less managed to keep upright. The only problem I had with them was when I was tweaking them to take a decent photograph, I was putting my flowers in at the back so they look good at the front, and then the following morning I discovered two stems had just flopped right over, and when I looked, I hadn't put them inside the vase. Schoolboy error. So all I had to do was recut the ends and then just jiggle around to get them in the water, and then they perked up. So just a small error that I made, but everyone can make mistakes. So on with this week. So this week is all about decorating eggs for Easter. So obviously we know Easter is on Sunday the 4th of April this year, and it's just the one day, but I really enjoy celebrating the seasons. So the seasons of spring, and I'm sort of including the season of Easter. That's obviously not actually a season. So I quite like building up to having my eggs and decorations around the house sort of as of now, so I can enjoy it for longer. It doesn't put me under pressure and stress that I've got to have my house looking perfect for, you know, the high days and holidays, because I'm slowly, as the seasons move on, morphing out of, you know, Valentine's Day to Mother's Day and on to, you know, general spring and Easter as well. So I have blown my eggs. I'm just going to move my mouse out of the way because that's distracting me. So you could use a blown egg. So that means that my egg is empty. There's nothing in it. You could use a hard boiled egg. I wouldn't advise that though, unless you're going to make it on the day of Easter or eating it straight away. You could use a polystyrene form or a wooden egg, or I've got some little hanging Easter eggs I put on my Easter egg tree that I could give those a makeover if I wanted to. And if you don't fancy blowing them, because it is quite a messy job, you could crack your eggs next time you're baking. You know, instead of just, you know, on the side of your container and cracking your egg open, you could carefully take a knife and sort of tap around the top edge and really sort of let the yolk and the white lollop out, but give yourself a really, really small hole. And then it's difficult to clean the inside of the egg out when you've blown it out. But if you have a slightly big opening, you can swish the water around inside and let them drain. So I have got a variety of decorations today, and I have mocked up a few eggs. So I'm going to show those to you first of all to give you an idea of what we're going to be doing. The first one I've got here is actually a duck egg that I stained by, it's a blown egg, but I changed the colour of it. It was white originally, and then I boiled it in water with some onion skins, which gave it actually a sort of the colour of a chicken egg, a hen's egg. And on the top, I have used the dimensional fabric paint that comes in a tube, and I got quite overexcited, and you'll see if I move it around the edge, but it's smudged a couple of times. This takes 4 hours to dry. So that is what I was using, and I will leave a link to that when I send out the video later on if you are interested in that. The other kind of egg, again, this is one I did a few years ago, and I have decoupaged little flowers onto it. So to do that, you need some decoupage paper or some pretty tissue paper or a napkin. If you do use napkins, they tend to have sort of about 3 layers bonded together, so you will need to separate the layers out. I've then used a specialist glue, because I had this specialist glue to hand, which the price label tells me was £6.75. I must have had this for about 5 years. Basically, it's just a watered down UPVA glue, the kind of thing you probably got in your craft cupboard. And then the next lot I'm going to show you, the next few eggs, these are actually hen's eggs which were blown, and they have a bit more of a wrinkled texture, because before I painted this at the weekend, I'm sure you can see that, I had decoupaged over it, so I totally used some papers that look like sort of crackled eggshells and painted on top, and I decided I didn't like it anymore. I wanted a fresh look, and I don't know if you can see, but it's pale pink here, white over here, with a gold stripe in the middle. So I can show you how I did that as well. And then in my list of ingredients, I've also got some white acrylic paint. I've raided my husband's artist's paint box, and I've got green, yellow, blue and red, and I thought if I put a tiny dot of those colours mixed in with my whites, it would give me some lovely pastel shades. My theme is going to be pastel shades for my eggs. I've also got some Sharpie pens, because you could draw on your eggs, and I found a white paint pen in my cupboard. So I thought that might be, with some of the darker eggs, if you've got, you know, chicken eggs that you're working on, a paint pen might be good. That was white. They come in black as well. I have also got some gold acrylic paint. Again, these are all things I happen to have in my craft stash. So I haven't gone out to buy any of these things. So don't feel that you can't do this project because you haven't got exactly what I've got. It's about, you know, mending, and what's the saying? Make, do, amend. Make, do, amend. So don't feel you have to go out and buy more stuff. But if you're interested in any of the products I've got, I will share the links with you. So I've got a source of my paint. I've also got some kebab sticks. I thought they would be quite handy if I'm painting. I can stick the stick up through the holes and then lodge those into my paint box so they can air dry. You don't want to be putting things down on a flat surface if you have painted your eggs on all sides. And also I have got some thread. I thought if you wanted to see how to hang your eggs up, if you decide that you want to have them hanging on your Easter egg tree, I can show you how to do that. I've also got a few little itsy bitsy pieces if you want to use your eggs as decor, in the sense of grouping them together to show them off, but I will show you that later on. And the other thing I've got is a little bag of feathers. So my husband was very kind, and I said to him, when you go on a dog walk, would you ever see if you find me feathers for me? And I love the fact this is slightly curved and they will fit. I could glue them onto my eggs, and the curve of the feather just exactly fits the curve on the egg shape. Naturally, I would have liked a more exotic bird than that, so I've just got white on white. But it's a, you know, if you have any feathers in your craft box or you like collecting feathers, that would be a great thing to use as well. So what I'm going to do first of all is sketch out some ideas of how I might like to decorate my eggs. So we're going to do quite an artistic project, and I'm going to show you what I do to do something artistic when I don't feel that I'm an artist. And it's all about mark making, making marks, probably taking you back to primary school. And I don't know about you, but we always had handwriting lessons, and we used to do lots of flowing exercises to get used to holding our pens. So I'm kind of going to take you back to primary school, and we're going to make some marks. And then from there, you will be able to see how easy it is to be creative, having mapped out something you might want to do in paper. on paper, instead of picking up an egg and suddenly thinking you're going to draw the Mona Lisa on it or something like that. So breaking it down, the more confident you get, the more intricate you can make your designs. So what I will do is I'll bring my second camera over and make that the spotlight for everybody. And then we'll get going. So just bear with me a moment while I shuffle my chair around. So I'm starting off with a blank sheet of paper. I'm leaving nothing to chance. And what I thought I would do was just draw out some sketch ideas of what I might like to, how I might like to decorate my eggs, really bring it down to quite a basic level. So I'm going to start off by drawing vague oval shapes. And I think this is just quite a good way to get yourself into the zone. Instead of looking at your eggshell as a blank canvas, trying to break it down into smaller pieces so that this creative project doesn't seem quite so overwhelming. So it may be that you might want to use the marker that your pen that you're using to do your sketching, but you might think, actually, I could use this marker and make some lines on my egg. And it doesn't matter if these lines aren't equally spaced or they wobble. That's all part of the character of your decoration. Perhaps you want to do some straight lines. And then here's where the handwriting practice comes in, with making lots of curves on it. And you could colour those in, or you could leave those blank. And thinking as you go, what else could you add in? Perhaps you like these vertical lines, and with the feather in mind, you might want to do some feathering up the side. Something like that. So lots of patterns to think about, and that's why I say it's about the mark making. Perhaps you want to be more random like that, or perhaps how about some dots, a couple of lines and some circles coming down the edge. So you can see what I'm doing here. These are all quite drawing based activities, things I could do with my marker pen or with my three-dimensional paint. You could, of course, do flowers, because we are a flower class. So these could be hand-drawn flowers, or they could be your decoupage flowers. How about some little sort of vines and twines growing up, a sort of herringbone pattern coming up like that, and just the impression of something floral on the edge. Or a bit more sort of geometric. Perhaps it's lines that you want to do, going from long to short, like that. So just to give you a little bit of an idea of what you could be doing. So you can see here, as I bring in the three-dimensional fabric paint, that this is my artist's impression of what it was going to be. This one here, with the sort of gold trim on it, that was what I had in mind when I was drawing that. And then with the flowers, oops, bouncing eggs. Can you see that on there with the eggs showing up? Now this one, last time I had this, I boiled it in onion skins and I put a little fern on the top there, and I've just sort of pattern on pattern there. So it's the little flowers that I want you to have. That's a slightly better focus to have a look at there. So let's get going. So what I will show you first of all is the fabric paint. And I'm going to use this, and it's a bit like if you've ever iced a cake, it's that same sort of technique. It comes out in the same way. Word of warning, this takes 4 hours to dry, which is why my version smudged a bit, because I got so carried away with the pattern, I couldn't then put my egg down to dry. And as I put it down to dry, it smudged a little bit. So I'll show you how you would start this, but I'm only going to give a little taster of how you could use it. So let's move that out of the way. So I'm conscious as well with my duck eggs that I'm using white on white, but I will put some photographs in with the newsletter afterwards to show you. So it's got a really small nib here. And obviously when you work, you'll be working on the table in front of you. I'm having to lift this up to have a look. But just the idea of taking things slowly. So a little bit here, you can see that my hand is naturally wobbling because I'm doing this in midair. And as you finish, it's a bit like when you use the icing bag, you know, you do your bit of icing and then you sort of squeeze and hold and come up. So I'm just doing little chunks at a time and finishing with a dot. And it's practice makes perfect. And you could add in little dots as sort of hints of flower. This is where you can see already on my thumb that I'm starting to smudge. And then you could, I just do one more line. So you can see there, even when I've done it now, that the first line was a bit wobbly. Even though I'm getting better at it. And if you painted your egg first, you could have the white would show up more. You could have, you know, a nice subtle pastel colour. So that would be an idea for the first style of egg, using the I think the brand is Tulip. It's slick, refers to the fact it's glossy, and it's called Dimensional Fabric Paint, but I will put a link to that when I send out the video. So that's the first option. So now I need to carefully lay this down so it dries. And then how about a bit of painting? I'm going to use my saucer, starting off with quite a big dollop of the white acrylic paint, excuse me. And then a tiny, tiny bit of a bit of colour. So I'm going to dot the colour onto the saucer. That's a bit mustardy there, not quite the colour I was expecting it to be. Do I want a pale green? So I'm a really, really small amount of colour because I don't want, for me personally, I'm going for a pastel look. Will the red turn pink? I think the red's going to be really vibrant and possibly an orangey red, so we'll have to wait and see. And then I've got the blue over here. Oops, a bit too much blue there. And I also found in my husband's kit, he's got this pale orangey colour as well, so I thought I'd give that a go. Just a tiny amount. Oh, I'm wondering whether he's open. Ah, he's not opened it, so perhaps I'll leave that one closed. So with my next egg, the easy option to be would just to paint your whole egg pastel coloured, but I quite like the idea of a sort of sweeping colour and being a bit more geometric. And again, I'm doing this up in the air in front of the camera so you can see. How about if I just lightly, pencil round a line that goes all the way around. It sort of goes high then low, and then another line. That's so I've drawn diagonally across, and I'm going to draw diagonally across the other way. So that's given me 4 blocks that I could colour in with my paint. If you are happy to go freehand, you can go freehand with your painting. But if you wanted to mask off some of the areas, and I've got some washi tape here, that you could put this along the lines and use that as a nice sort of margin. And then when your paint's dry, you can peel it off. It gives you a really lovely crisp line, but you may find it adds more time to your drying. So I'm going to be brave and mix my paint up, and I'm going to go a little bit of green and try and paint within the lines. We really are going back to primary school here. with my subtle shade of green. And then what I'll probably do is I'll give this a little bit to dry, and then I'll come back and do the next colour. If you're working on this at home, what you could do is dry your paint with a hairdryer. So I'm going to go edges first. And then that way, there's a lot of breath holding going on here behind the camera. And carefully turning it round so I don't smudge. And painting in. You may find that you get the coverage you want with one coat, or you may need to let it dry and come back with another coat. And then you'd choose what other colours you wanted. But I've made 4 little pockets, and do you want to cover all 4 little pockets, or do you want to use one of them white, and are you going to have one metallic, or are you going to perhaps draw some lines around the edge to colour it up with the whole bold section of gold? So why don't I, if I can hold this, go for my second colour, and I'll show you what this gold paint looks like. And then when I make and create with you at the end of the lesson, I will finish this one off. But sometimes it's just nice if you think about things, because we love flowers, not everything we do needs to have a flower on it or to be floral. You know, sometimes you can go bold and geometric, and it's these bold geometric shapes which are sometimes easier to execute. So bearing in mind that paint isn't dry yet, you will get a little bit of the idea of what I'm doing. And it may be, not sure I can talk and paint at the same time, that you think, well, I don't want the whole lot of that section gold. Perhaps you just want a highlight area. So I might go freeform and just have a gold section like that and come in with another colour. I know from experience this gold will need another coat of paint because it looks a bit, I can see the brush strokes, and I want to have a more opaque colour on it. So it's about, like lots of crafting things, building up your colour slowly and remembering that, you know, a crafting project doesn't have to be made within seconds. It's something you can sit and do, especially if you've got somewhere you work, whether you can, you know, clear the kitchen table, or you've got a worktop, or you can set up a tray on your knee and just paint as you watch your favourite TV programme, but to take it slowly and carefully, and you will need to allow drying time. So this one, because I've only painted the top, I could just rest it back in my egg box, or if I wanted to, I could put the skewer up the bigger end of the 2 holes I made when I blew the egg, and I can have it drying like that by resting it, either balancing it. I'm going to balance it there across my egg box. But you could, if you had a piece of flour foam, you could wedge that in a piece of flour foam or a piece of packaging or a cardboard box, something like that. So what should we do next? I've got my big marker pen here, so I'm going to move the paints out of the way and think about what I might like to do with my marker pen. So here goes. And again, you saw me pencil out before what I did. So if you were nervous about doing it, you could pencil out some guidelines. I'm just trying to decide what to do. Should we go really, the simple one? How about this one here? It almost looks like someone has stitched their way around. So what could be easier than a line? Perhaps my line won't be the same. You know, I'm not precision measuring it, but this is all about being handcrafted. I'm doing a reasonably long dash. Now I can see where I need to match them up. Perhaps I might want to do the next line as dots, or randomly, or with paint. So let's change the mark and go for dots next time round. And you could build that up. You could make a little belt. Is it Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall? Imagine I'm making Humpty Dumpty's trousers here, going through, or, you know, continue on. And again, I'll finish this when we are making and creating together. So that would be something, if you thought you weren't an artist, you had no artistic bone in your body, that you could start to develop something along those lines. So I shall put that down and finish that one later. Now, what about, as I say, we love flowers. Shall we let a little bit of flower creep in? So you've got two options here with your flowers, or three options actually. Number one, you could use your pens and draw flowers. And the easiest way to draw a flower is to not draw flowers, to think about the component shapes. So I would draw a circle. Oh, it's very faint, that pen. Am I going to have the same problem with these? So I would have the center of my flower. I'm going to end up with a green flower here. And then I would draw unconnected, just either lines, or I'm trying to draw little ovals. And that would be a great way to add some flowers on. Turning it around. So you might want to choose a different center color to your petal color. And then if you wanted to do that in paint, I'm going to just wipe my paintbrush clean there, or clean-ish anyway. Perhaps I will take a bit of the white and get myself a pinkish tone. Like that. And again, thinking about our mark making, use my paintbrush and just use the side there. So I'm not having to draw a flower. This is like a sophisticated version of potato printing with the side of your paintbrush. Something like that. Do I need an extra one there? And then if you wanted a center, perhaps I could turn the paintbrush over and give myself a little green center on there. Or perhaps you might want to use a combination of the two techniques. What's quite nice about this is the paint was quite thick, so it gives me a nice textured look to it. But I will need to remember that that is now wet. And again, I will need to leave that to dry. And then the third method of adding flowers would be to use, if you have it, decoupage paper. So I'll show you how I would do that. I've got a nice little production line of half finished eggs here. So new egg. I've chosen some decoupage paper that is quite floral. What I thought I would do is cut out some of the flowers. So I've got a tiny pair of scissors. And again, I'm going to do a rough cut first. You might want to cut your flowers out individually or in little blocks. Let's go. And again, you decide how intricate you want to make it. If you've got more time, you might be getting really tight close to your flowers. I'm going to leave mine all with quite a red border. And you might want to glue this on in one go, or you might want to break it down a little bit. Sometimes if your piece of paper is too big and you've got the curve of your egg, it's harder to put together. So I might, for instance, here, perhaps I could divide that one down into a flower on its own. And then those two on their own. Those look a little bit like hourglasses now. So I think I'm going to separate those. And just curve everything off because I want it to look nice and round. Round flowers on a round egg. And again, you would take more time and trouble with this than I'm able to at the moment. And with my decoupage glue, which is just a watered down PVA glue. Hardly any left. Taking another paintbrush and dipping into the glue onto the egg. And if we're thinking at our flower arranging, we normally think about our main flower, focal flower, being quite low down. I'm going to pick my biggest flower and put that onto the base of my, move that around to the right place, and then paste over the top. Again, you decide how you want to position them. Whether you want to have quite heavy coverage, you know, on the bottom, or whether you want to have it sort of heavy at the bottom and climbing up the egg, it's entirely up to you. And again, I would do this, I would sort of do the top surface, I think, and then let that dry and move around. You don't want to be, having spent the time positioning things and gluing things, you don't want to be nudging them out of position. So just to show the one that I made earlier on the darker egg, I'll bring that into focus. I used a combination of flowers, but you can see how the larger or the bigger groupings of flowers are left at the bottom, and then slowly it's almost like, you know, imagine a dandelion clock. You've got the main clock there, and then you've got all the little seed heads, or in my case the tinier flowers, lifting off into the distance. So you can see here, this one I had more time and I've rushed that a little bit. But if it all goes wrong, it's glue, you can soak it off and start again. And then let's go to my feathers. I think I've got, that's calculation is right. I think that's egg number 6. And how about make it simple? And I glue a feather on there for texture. So this would look lovely if you had feathers that had different colours in them. We used to have budgies. That would have been nice, wouldn't it? A nice yellow feather on my egg. Position that on the top and just let that. I don't want to flatten it down too much because I quite like the sort of fluffy edge to it as a little decorative detail. If you wanted greater contrast, you could dye your eggs. So that could be in the onion skins or red cabbage to give you a different colour. Or of course, you could paint your eggs in pastel shades before you started doing any decoration. So it's your choice whether you start with your natural white duck's egg or your natural brown tone chicken egg, or whether you want to paint them or dye them as an undercoat. So I am going to leave that there for the moment, and I'm going to switch to the main camera and just show you how I would finish these projects up, how I would hang them up, and how I would group them and arrange them to show off to, you know, for maximum decorative effect. So I will switch cameras again and then come back to you. So it does look like I've had a lovely time at playgroup this morning with all my gluing and sticking and things setting out to dry. So how are you going to use your eggs? You know, you've crafted them. What are you going to use them for? The easiest thing you could do would be to tumble them very gently into a nice bowl and just display them as is. But if you wanted to hang them up onto an Easter tree, you'd need to put a thread in them. And that's quite handy where you have blown your eggs. I haven't shown you this one yet. I don't know if you can pick that up. I marbled this egg a couple of years ago, and I think I've got another video on that, so I will attach that when I send the video out in class today. My daughter was really keen on making slime at one time, and that involved a lot of food colouring and shaving foam. So I marbled this egg by squirting shaving foam onto a baking tray, drizzling food colouring up it, and then sort of doing that with a kebab stick when you feather it, and then you tumble your egg through the food colouring. And I was always very disappointed because it's not very vibrant, but I think of all the eggs I've made over the years, this one is my favourite because it does actually look like marble rather than looking as if it has been marbled, which is quite a bold look. So if I wanted to hang this one up, I'm just hoping, just need to I think that egg is too big. I'm going to go and try and hang up a smaller egg. So you've got holes in your eggs because you blew them. I have got my crochet yarn. So you'd have seen this used over several projects before. I've threaded it onto a large-eyed needle. I'm going to fold my thread in half. And taking the needle, and this is why I discarded the first egg was too deep. I'm going to take that. Oh, is it still going to work? Not quite sure. I think I failed. Oh, I can't get the needle in. Imagine that, will it work with that one? What I'm trying to do is to thread my needle up, and now I'm leaking inside of egg. I am taking a long needle, longer than the needle I've got, threading it through the hole, because your blown eggs will have two holes, the top one and the bottom one. Threading it up through the hole, out through the other side. And then I've done that wrong, haven't I? Because I end up with a needle at the end. I have done that wrong, bear with me. You need to fold your thread in half first. I thought I was saving time by threading my needle before we started. Double your yarn, thread it through your needle. Go in through your hole at the bottom, out through the other side, and then when you've done that, of course, you take your needle off and you're left with a hook, and then you just need to knot the bit inside, and then you'll end up with a longer hook. So make sure you knot it. I'm not sure I've said that very clearly, but if you have got any questions about that, you can ask me, or if you're watching this on record, that you can message me and I'll explain that in more detail. So that would be one way of doing it. The other way of using your eggs, I've got a little planted egg here that I'm very delicately going to show you. So this is an egg that I cracked, and I've used this as a little planter. It's got a rather wayward grape hyacinth in there. I was digging it up from the garden. I didn't realise how much the stem was below the ground. And then a tiny little forget-me-not flower that is just coming into bud. So that's another way of using eggs around the house. I've also got a little nest. This was something I bought, used to have eggs in it, and they went missing. And you can see there's a rather not very nice lot of hot glue there. But I thought if I take some moss, I could put some moss into my egg shell, and then you could nestle, a real life egg in the top of it. Or taking that idea further, I've got these little metal ramekins that my mum had, and I think they must be individual jelly molds or something like that. Again, you could take some moss and you could fill up the base. I'm just taking off the chunky bits, nestle that down, bury an egg in it, something like that. Or if you wanted to go a little bit bigger, with my little terracotta pot, there's a matter just of making sure your egg is sized to what you want. I think my egg was too big for the others, now it's too small for that pot, but you get the idea there. And then the other idea I had was actually to incorporate candles. We always think about candles being for the dark winter days or for celebrations, but how about using some candles and a cake tin or a little bun tin to get a look together. So I'm just going to lean across here and show you what I have got here. So this is one of these cake tins with the mini holes. It's pristine. I've never used it. They're too small for jam tarts. So what you could do, if you've got any odds and ends of candles that's left over from Christmas, you could fix these in place. I am just placing these in place for the moment, so these will topple over as soon as I've finished. Wobble, wobble. But you would melt the bottoms off them to hold them in place, or you would get some blue tack or white tack and stick them in place. I think the blue tack would work best. Or if you're being brave, you could go for colourful candles. I'm not really good at coloured candles, but I have been out to the shops. Well, this would have been a couple of years ago now, and with sort of spring-like colours, so you could have those lined up, and then you could make a little serving tray. So you could, in the little gaps, your eggs have got somewhere to sit. So I could have my little nesting and making it all look, you know, like a Scandi vibe, but in a fresh way. I think I prefer the white eggs here with my white candles, and organising them to best decorative effect. Oh, I've got so many to choose from, I don't know which to use. So perhaps something like that. Now, if I lift that up, it'll wobble. But again, oops, it will wobble. I will put a photograph of that into the newsletter that goes out so you can see what I mean. I quite like here with the white candles and the fact that my eggs are predominantly white, it's given me a really fresh look. And you could change things up if you've got the darker eggs, or you've decided to dye your eggs or colour them, that perhaps they might look better with a brighter, more vibrant candle. So I think I'm probably going to leave it there. So I've got quite a mess in front of me. So I have got lots of making and creating to do with you. And if you're watching on the recorded version of the video, don't forget to send me your photographs. You can post them in my Facebook group or tag me on Instagram. I would love to see what you're making and creating. So what I'm going to do now for the ladies who are here live is I'm going to stop the recording, and then I'll ask you all to come off mute, and then I can answer your questions for those of you who need to rush off. And for those of you who are able to stay and make and create with me, we can get gluey and sticky and messy together. So I shall say goodbye for now, and then I'll come back. Well, I'm not going anywhere if you're watching this live. And then we will carry on with the best bit, I think, which is making, creating, and seeing what you've brought to class, and seeing what techniques and ideas we need to adapt, and what you've got and how you're going to interpret this week's brief.